Welcome to the Rational Egoist. I'm your host, Michael Liebowitz. And with us tonight is my good friend, Mr. James Stevens Valliant. And speaking of friend, that's what we're going to talk about, friendship. James, welcome back.
Well, it's always great to be here. And what a wonderful topic. One of my favorite topics.
I think it's good. And I think we need to, what does it mean to be a friend? Like if somebody were to say, like, you often hear people say, such and such is my friend. And someone will say, well, I think that's more of an acquaintance or some such thing as that. Or that's my best friend. But that's a good friend. That's just a friend. So it would seem that the concept of friend is there's a continuum, right? On the friendship scale. But what do we mean when we say friend?
Well, the point you make there is the starting point, I think. Aristotle and many philosophers, or those philosophers, and it's actually the better philosophers who are so practically minded as to discuss this subject, which I think is of philosophical import. But starting with Aristotle, for example, with friendship, he defined different kinds of friendship. There are different kinds of friends, and there certainly are. And I can have a practical relationship with someone where I'm getting something useful from them. They're my employee, they're my boss, they're my agent, they're my grocer. I go and I buy stuff from them, and it can be a very positive win-win relationship. And the virtues that I'm responding to there are very directed toward the values that were exchanged. So the point, though, is though there's a case where there's values being exchanged on the basis of at least a degree of virtue. And I would say that this is true for all friendships. A friendship is a positive human relationship in which we're getting significant values from it. Now, a commercial relationship, I'm getting important, and they may actually be survival values, but food and clothing and homes and stuff. So important as those business relationships are, nonetheless, there's a higher level that we get out of, there's friendships for pleasure. Aristotle went up the notch with, and he said, somebody that I enjoy playing chess with. Let's say I love chess. And let's say you and I disagree about politics, we disagree about all kinds of things, but we're both really into chess. We enjoy chess. And boy, what a great time we have playing chess. You're my chess buddy. Now, if we were to try and take that out of the context of chess, we probably may not have anything else in common, but those are still higher in Aristotle's view. They're friendships of pleasure. Someone tells his good sense of humor and they tell jokes. Leonard Peikoff has a great example for this. He's the kind of friendship that ends when the guy runs out of jokes.
Pretty soon we're going to have somebody say, quoting, if Leonard Peikoff said this must be the case.
Well, I just thought it was a clever,
it's a good, it is.
Friendships of pleasure.
It's gonna bite us in the ass eventually. Probably me more than you. Someone will comment on a post. Well, Leonard Peikoff said, and then what are you gonna do?
Well, it was just Leonard Peikoff on Aristotle. So anyway, Aristotle said there is yet a still more important kind of friendship. It's more than some kind of practical exchange of values on utility grounds, which is still an exchange of values based on virtue. And the friendships of pleasure, they too are still an exchange of values. They're still based on, to some extent, virtue. Aristotle said there's something else that we get. There's another level that we get from a kind of appreciation of ourselves that we can only get from an equal. If someone really shares my values, if someone really shares my virtue level, and those are the things Aristotle said are required, it's very difficult. Aristotle laid out a whole bunch of requirements that are necessary to be a true friend in this regard. We have to be equals, right? It has to be chosen. We have to actually be physically present. This day of Zoom, you live in Connecticut and I live in California, and we've yet to meet in person, and yet you're this kind of friend to me. Aristotle said if we didn't have this Zoom thing available, we really just, in fact, we practically couldn't be like that, because we want to spend time with each other.
Right.
And this feature of wanting to spend time, your time with this other person, is an important feature of that. It's not any particular thing like chess. It's not any particular thing like my grocer. It's you. It's your character. It's your moral virtue as such. It's not simply a virtue. It's not simply a value in a specific context. It is the virtues that are Michael as a whole package. When I get to that point, when it's your character as a package, Aristotle says, then I'm responding to that. And I kind of have to be an equal. I have to be your moral equal in order to reciprocate that, in effect. And when we do have this kind of reciprocal moral admiration, then we're giving each other a kind of awareness of each other's virtue that only two virtuous men can give one another. And that's what he said.
It's
This appreciation of this mutual appreciation of virtue is like having another self. And it is gratitude and admiration for the entire characterological package that the person is. And I have to say, I urge everyone to go read Aristotle on friendship. In his book, Aristotle wrote books on ethics, Nicomachean Ethics in particular. I urge people to go check out Aristotle's works on ethics, if only to read his discussion of friendship, which is one of the most magnificent achievements any Western philosopher ever did. From the pre-Socratics to the 21st century, Aristotle on friendship is one of the greatest moments in Western philosophy. And it is another self. It is a response to character and virtue. And when it truly is, you're giving me, Michael, by your virtue, a gift. A gift. And so it's not that I'm paying for, if I do a favor for you, Michael, this is payment for services long ago rendered.
right. See, I want to comment on that real quick, Jim, because I look at friendship as if a value for value. Like, I don't want to be friends with somebody who's not getting anything from me. You know what I mean? Like, some people take offense at the notion, oh, it's a transactional relationship, but I don't want a friend who's just a charity case who's just going to take pity on me. I want somebody that I'm benefiting. Now, what you just talked about is that doesn't mean that every time I do something for you or you do something for me, I have to immediately give something back. The way that Brent and I used to say it is like an open account, right? It's open on both ends. So whatever you need, I'm there. You know what I mean? And I know it's the same in return. So the exchanges are implied, I guess, would be the way to look at it.
Ayn Rand was so brilliant on this point. I can get nothing from you except what is selfish on your part. The only value, let me put this in italics. Let me underline this 6 times. The only value I can give to anyone is my selfishness. The only value they can give me is their selfishness. Ayn Rand repeatedly said this in various ways. If someone said to you, gee, I really love you, but it's a charity case. I have a miserable time. I do not enjoy talking to you. You're boring. You're awful. It's hideous. You smell bad. And I really have a bad time every time I'm with you. I never have fun when I'm with Michael, but it's charity. And you see what a good person I am? No,
Yeah. Yeah.
no.
Some
In fact,
Kantian duty, right?
that I tell you, I'm having a great time, Michael. I want to spend my time with you. That's the selfish thing for me to do right now, is to be with you and talk to you. That is the compliment. That is love. It can't be admiration, love, affection. They have to be grounded in solid, pure selfishness. Love, and the higher up we go, Holly is the most selfish thing for me. And that's what love is. My saying to her, you are the most selfish person for me
Right.
to look at. And it would be some kind of bizarre insult if it were anything less. No, there's this higher value out there, Holly, that I'm not living with, because Ayn Rand was exactly right on this. I only want your selfishness. Only your selfishness can be of value to me. Please do not waste your time with me if it's not selfish. You don't insult me by anything less than pure selfishness. Thank you. And because only anything less is an insult. So Aristotle is absolutely correct here. It has to be on the basis of virtue, and it has to be on the basis of a sort of mutual admiration, on the basis of moral virtue. But when it reaches that point, it isn't, every Christmas we will tip certain, our gardener, the newspaper delivery person, some merchant that we do business with, an end of the year or Christmas kind of tip at the holidays, just to say thank you for this very practical exchange, like you say, of a very concrete sort of value. It's a kind of gratitude, but it's a gratitude for something very specific, for something very zeroed in. Thank you for being such a wonderful cook, gardener, merchant. When we're talking at the other end, when it's a reaction to your soul, I am grateful, Michael, that you are what you are. And almost like a sheer aesthetic value, the contemplation of your virtue gives me such visibility. We can get to that concept in a second.
That's where I was going next. You always do that in these discussions. I have a plan of what I want to ask, and then you jump in and preempt it.
I'm
I'm
sorry. But my gratitude isn't for anything. Yes. Am I grateful that you brought up for specific podcasts we've done? Yes. But my gratitude transcends any specific podcast we've done together. And I am, don't get me wrong, I'm grateful for those specific podcasts. But now my gratitude transcends that. I'm grateful that you are what you are. And the sheer contemplation of Michael Liebowitz gives me an intense kick in the ass pleasure. Hey, that is a cool guy. That is a guy I relate with, you know. And on the visibility thing, I'm the kind of guy who can be lonely in a crowded room. And if someone can't even hear what I'm saying, and I know most of the time people won't even understand what I'm saying. When I have a conversation with you, Michael, I know you're going to understand what I'm saying without any explanation. It's like you're there already, so that no explanation needed. You understand me, you get me, you grasp me, you see me.
Yeah.
You see me in a way that Nathaniel Brandon had a wonderful way of looking at this. He said, we have mirrors for our physical bodies. And it's true. If I'm gaining too much weight, or if I'm getting out of shape, or if I'm getting too old, I
You
can
look
look.
fine. You look great, Jim.
But the point is that if there is something, visibly amiss, I can see it in the mirror. I have eyes that can show me X-rays and MRIs that can go to show me my body. What we don't have is an MRI for the soul. And what we don't have is an X-ray machine, or even just a mirror, as Brandon uses the example for the soul, except in the souls of other human beings. It's only another human consciousness that can actually give me that awareness of my own self in an important way. And that visibility is absolutely critical to what we get. Brandon goes up a wonderful notch. He said, if you were on a spaceship, say, going to a distant planet, and it was taking you years to get there, and there were no plants, no animals, you were just in a metal box for the next 12 months. All your food was, the nutrition pellets were put in there for you. But you were just sitting there in a metal box with no living thing around you. It would be a bleak experience. Put in a house plant. Just take care of water and take care of a house plant. Suddenly, this other thing, living thing, struggling to stay alive, gives me a kind of visibility. Now, I know some objectivists don't regard that as visibility at all. And in a sense, it's not. But a dog, consider
Well, hold on 1 second, because I wouldn't say it's visibility, but I would say it's the ability to identify with the struggle to grow, to try to survive. I mean, a plant's not trying literally, but you know what
not consciously. It has no consciousness.
the
But it's
plant is struggling to stay alive. Now, in the case of the dog, and what Brandon called the Mutnik principle, after his dog Mutnik, was he
right.
was shadow boxing with the dog, and he realized the dog knew that he wasn't going to hurt it. The dog understood him. And that's just such a gratifying experience. It almost defies explanation for why. It just is. We want to be understood, to be seen.
Another. It's one consciousness having a similar experience, an echo experience with it. Oh, isn't that fun? Yeah, isn't that fun? Isn't that fun? Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Let's just, and you play. I do that with my dog all the time. He's a tough little, he's, all of 10 pounds. So here we are. We're going to play a little tug of war with some toy of his. And he knows that I'm just playing tug of war. And of course, I always let him win. But the struggle in the meantime, I can't let him immediately win. So, because he wants to show me how tough he is. Or he's really, really tough. And he's going to show me just how tough he is. And I'll say, yeah, you're a tough guy. Boy, oh boy. And then I'll let go. wow, you're so tough. And he's so proud. Yes, I got the toy from daddy. Oh my goodness, I'm so proud. Just that psychological exchange. And it is a psychological exchange that we had. There's something about children and animals that can give us a unique kind of visibility. But by the same token, there's something inferior. For all my love of pets, and Jonathan Honig's new book with Leonard Peikoff on Can a Person Love a Pet, I highly recommend. And I think it's true, people can love animals, and they can be an important part of our life and can give us, unlike plants, a kind of visibility, as you correctly point out. But there's still a higher kind of visibility. And it's not the visibility I get from a merchant, and it's not the visibility I get from someone that, I play pickleball with and we have fun. I mean someone that I admire, someone whose soul sees mine, someone whose soul I can appreciate the finer points of, someone whose virtue matches mine. That's a very special thing. For now, you see, I know myself to be a virtuous person. I know you to be a virtuous person. Only you can really give me the visibility of my virtue, because you have the character to see, appreciate, respond, and know. And I have the confidence that you can see that virtue for similar reasons. It is that basis that creates something different. It's not, like I say, a gratitude for some specific thing, like some, present you gave me for my birthday. No, 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 no. I'm grateful for you as such, your existence, your character, your being, what you are. Even if we were never to do another podcast, which you've given me great value from these podcasts, don't get me wrong. But even if we were to have another such exchange, I will still and forever be grateful, Michael, for you just being the person you are. And I
You
will
know,
always get a warm feeling inside just because you're that kind of person.
okay, I appreciate it. I really do. But we cannot just have this be a celebration of me as much as I love it.
You
So,
asked me what friendship is.
no,
That's what I think
no,
friendship
you're
is.
absolutely right.
Friendship.
So, as somebody whose character has gone through a radical transformation, is in the case of me, I made a post this morning on Twitter, on Facebook, that I found it funny. So this morning, I was over a friend of mine. I was over his house. He's teaching me a skill, a marketable skill to do with real estate. He's a former police officer. So this morning on X, I posted how funny it was that, I used to run from cops and fear prosecutors. Now, two of my closer friends are a retired cop and a retired prosecutor. But the point is, and it's not to say that all cops and prosecutors are virtuous, because obviously they're not, of
God,
course. But in the case of the two of you, you are, and it's an interesting thing that as my character has changed, the type of relationships that I'm, first of all, the type of relationship is different in the sense of the visibility and the openness and the honesty. That's different. But even with the caliber of human beings that I'm able to embrace, and well, I guess maybe more is better to say, are willing to embrace me, because people of integrity understand and appreciate that struggle. They see that what I'm doing, and like, I mean, I've only been out of prison 16 months. I have no marketable skills other than this, but this takes time. So, he looks at it like, well, let me teach you. Let me show you something, because he understands that I'm willing to put in the work. You know what I mean? You and me, we have these late night well, they're late night for me. For you, it's a little earlier, but we have these discussions, because even when you and I disagree, and maybe even if I'm wrong, you understand I'm being honest. Right. I'm not going to go into an argument with you and just be dishonest. If you show me I'm wrong, it's okay. And you'll go through it.
Always teach me something. You see, the thing is, you're so smart and well informed that whether I'm right or wrong, I'm still going to gain something from the exchange. You
Right.
see, even when
But there's that trust there in the discussion, I guess is what I'm saying. Like, I know that you're not just making an argument. Even if I think it's dead wrong, I know you're not just being an asshole, right?
no,
I understand this is what you're thinking. This is a conclusion you've legitimately drawn.
no, you
Maybe
and it would be an insult to you not to be critical of you when I
right,
need to
of
disagree with you.
course.
I would not so insult you, nor would that be getting the value. See, not only would I be insulting you, but I'd be obscuring the very value that I'm getting from you, namely your creative intelligence. No, I have to foster that disagreeable creative intellect that is the source of the values. That is the very source of the key spark plug for those values is actually going to. And guess what? That is a good sign for me that we disagree. Because guess what? We care about reality. That shows me that what we do share is a valuing the truth. By valuing the truth, we share this value, this higher value that all other values you see are subordinate. Of course, they're lesser values. Of course, they're less important. That stupid disagreement down there is way down the line because I know you honestly care about the truth. You honestly are committed to reason. And that's why our disagreements are valuable.
Yes. Now, here's something, Jim, that it just occurred to me while we're talking is that even if people share the same abstract values, I mean, we're talking objectivism often, so let's just use that. Even if you have people that uphold reason, purpose, and self esteem as the primary values, and they're consistent, they live them, they uphold the virtues, that doesn't mean that a friendship is going to ensue because there has to be something, a further something. Like you and I, for instance, we joke, we laugh. Not everybody likes that. Not everybody has the same sense of humor. You could share the same moral principles and same philosophy, but you don't find the same things funny or you don't find the same things entertaining. But I know if I tell some dumb joke to you, I'm going to make you laugh, right? Because you have a similar sense of humor to mine. So we click philosophically, yes, but even more, I don't want to say broadly, maybe it's more densely, would be the better way to put it. But do you understand what I'm saying? Well, of course you do because you're my friend.
I hear you. See, that's what a friend can do. A friend can hear you. And anyway,
Yes.
the virtue is one thing. See, uh, let's take Ayn Rand's perspective on optional areas and personal objectivity versus universal objectivity. She believed that reason, for example, was the top virtue and productiveness was a key virtue. But she would say, but whether you're a doctor, a lawyer, a merchant, a sailor, a television wrestler, that's up to you, how you're productive, and it's going to be different. That doesn't make it subjective. It would be non-objective for me to have gone into medicine, for example. I don't like blood. I don't like, and they're heroic. Don't get me wrong. I honor and admire doctors very, very highly, but it's not for me. I'm not going to be a medical doctor. I'm not going to have fun in a hospital. Okay, it was not the field for me. I would have been miserable at it. I would have not only been bad at it, I'd have been miserable in fact. So rather than do that, I am a communicator. I'm a lawyer. I'm an advocate. I'm a writer, and that is what I enjoy doing. That's what I'm better at doing. That's what works for me objectively. So the mere fact that something is a personal value doesn't make it subjective, but it does make it such that I can't really judge you because you don't have, for example, my taste and sense of humor, let's say, or let's say you like sushi and I like steak, and so we just don't go to have dinner together. I mean, because right? If it's personal, it doesn't mean that it's subjective. But those personal things matter in personal friendships. In fact, the more personal the relationship, see, I have an objectivist colleague. They're a perfectly virtuous person from what I can tell. Would I want to spend my time with them? No. There are a lot of people who I think are perfectly virtuous objectivists who I really don't want to spend my time with, to be perfectly honest with you.
You're not driving around in the convertible rag top down.
No, because you see, I wouldn't have fun with them like I do. They
Yeah.
would me and feel me like you. Well, feel me. I don't mean to sound weird. No, they don't. They wouldn't
I'm
understand
not
me.
feeling him. Let's get this
I'll
straight.
feel me.
Strictly platonic relationship.
Yes, we're strictly platonic. Okay.
Not that there's anything wrong with it.
Is there anything wrong with that? Yes, but those personal things matter, and they're not subjective. And it's an objective fact if I'm of a certain energy level And whether think about it, a romantic relationship is even bigger than just like a friendship. I agree with Ayn Rand. A romantic relationship is very different than just a buddy relationship. You're not just buddies with your romantic partner, okay?
That'd be a
That
little weird.
that transcends to a different level, romantic love. And again, but it's about all kinds of things that are unique to me and distinct to me. And if we didn't share the same sense of humor, the same energy level, a lot of the same values, if we didn't have complementary differences that fit together in a certain way, the idea of living with someone, now think about that. That's the thing. I'm living with her for the last 27 years. That involves a whole bunch of values. And there better the hell be a whole lot of overlap if you're going to successfully build a life with someone. So it's not just morality, ethics as such that decides this, but it's still a question of values and still a question of virtue. What I'm responding to is still virtue. Those values may be different because they're optional within the realm, but it's still the virtue about that value that I'm responding to, if that makes sense.
Yes. Now, there's this thing about honesty in friendships, right? And now that I'm saying honesty, it's occurring to me. I want to make sure that I did understand what you just said. I don't want to screw myself. What you were saying is that, in essence, is that in a friendship, it's always virtue and values that are what's the word, working with each other. Even when there's differences, the virtues and values are still there. They're just being expressed in different ways. Right.
Exactly.
See, I said yes before I was certain about the question, but now I'm going to bring up honesty. So the guilt came and kicked me. So I said, I better be honest. But to me, honesty is vital, right? Now, there's people out there that think, well, no, white lies are okay. And I recall this situation with Melissa where she fed me, I want to say zucchini, but I'm not positive. I generally don't like greens. And Melissa was a phenomenal cook. So she gave me this thing and I said, I don't like it. And she felt bad. And I told her, honey, look, you shouldn't feel bad because now you know when I tell you I like it, that you actually did well, that it was a good job. When I tell you you look nice, you know I'm telling you the truth. When I tell you I love you, you know I'm telling you the truth because I don't bullshit you. But what if you found out that I told you I like something, but then it turns out I don't? Now you have to question every damn thing I say. I don't
Exactly.
want that from a friend. Now that doesn't mean, of course, that every time somebody tells me, like Brent, that's what I have the most experience with in this, telling me I'm doing something wrong. It doesn't mean that the second Brent says to me, "Hey, asshole, stop doing this," I say, "Oh, well, thank you so much for pointing out my flaw and my and my error. I really feel much better about it." You know what I mean? I mean, initially, there's often a sting, but
Of
the
course.
long term is gratitude because I
Yes.
don't want to be lied to. I don't need people that are going to bullshit me. I just don't. I mean, it doesn't help me. It doesn't serve me at all.
Oh
So
man.
if somebody's going to be a friend, tell
Yeah.
me the damn truth, right?
Well, it's something, people will send me manuscripts to look over their manuscript, and I'll fill it with your changes and stuff, and they'll say, "I'm so grateful that you were honest and you didn't, BS me." And I say, "Well, just as an editor, I have to be ruthless." I'm going to say, uh, if you're my friend, it is 1,000 times more important that I be ruthlessly honest about my values, my preferences. Boy, that was a shitty thing you did the other day. I didn't like it when you did that. You better be able to be critical of your friend, and your friend better be able to hear that criticism. In fact, that's
Absolutely.
absolutely vital, absolutely vital. And the ability to put it in context. No, look, I know you're honest and good. The reason why I'm telling you this is so that you have a chance to either correct or self-consciously own it. And that's the other thing. If it is a difference, I want to know whether they're self-consciously going to own that or if it is a problem that we have. And we're not going to do either of us any favors if we evade that. No, I'll go much further. True friendship is not only being honest about the negative stuff, it's actually being open and assertive about your negative stuff. When I was in my 20s and I would be dating, I put my best foot forward, as the saying goes. I put my virtues and the impressive stuff in the front window. If there were things that I thought were like problematic, or she might think it's a red or yellow flag, we don't need to bring that up immediately, do we? Now that was just my sales technique. It's not as though I was trying to be dishonest. It's not as though I was hiding it. It's not as though I didn't plan to reveal everything about myself if the relationship worked out. When I got to Holly, one of the smartest things that ever happened, I did, and I just changed my strategy altogether. I said, you know something, I'm going to put it all up front. I'm going to put all the problems, all the worries, all my eccentricities right in the front window. And boy, what a good idea that was. The minute that happened, I was totally relaxed. There was nothing more that could come out. I'd already spilled the beans, and she was still interested. Okay, now I can really sell myself in a very relaxed and natural way as it comes up. It was actually, you probably don't need to set out to either do one or the other. In fact, you should probably just let the conversation occur in its own way naturally. But for me, it was an important thing to learn that hiding who I was, even things that I didn't wasn't particularly proud about myself, was a bad strategy. And this is true with friends too. The better the friendships have been the ones where I have opened myself up vulnerably. I've exposed myself. I've gone out there on the limb, exposed myself, taken all my clothes off, and stood on the pedestal and said, "Here it is." That's when I've gotten. We were talking about visibility. You want real visibility? You need to have the courage, and this is, of course, a sign of true strength and courage. The man of self-esteem, the man of courage, is the man who's willing to stand up there naked, let everyone see him for what he is, and you respond. And all that matters to me is your response now to me. If you can appreciate it, you're the lucky one. If you can't, goodbye, have a nice life.
Right.
And let's move on and have our own lives. But the point is that exposure is key to friendship. Actively, see, with most people at a party, I don't owe them every piece of information in my head. Being quiet is not being dishonest, right? There are contexts in which it can be, where
Sure.
it's Ayn Rand points this out. If the context is such that your silence would be something they could construe agreement with, just simply say, I disagree, and that's usually enough. But outside of those contexts, you don't owe people the information in your head. It's not dishonest not to reveal information, except to those you have a moral responsibility to reveal it to. But I'll tell you something, you're stupid and unselfish if you're not being actively vulnerable and exposing yourself to the people in your life that you do value, admire, and care about. Actively expose yourself, open your soul, and that's where the real rewards of friendship
Right.
are. That's when you'll
Right.
find those corners of I'll share an experience I had when I was a teenager with some male buddy of mine, and he'll say, I can't tell you how many times this has happened. I mean, I can't, more than on one hand. I say, I never told anyone about this experience I had, but I had an experience like that myself. And suddenly we've clicked, we've connected. We were both human together because we had a similar experience. Even if we weren't eager to tell the world about it, we're now connected in a way because we had the same developmental, even if it was the same developmental error, by the way.
Yeah. Jim, would you say, I think the way I would just summarize this as you were talking is if you want to be visible, you have to be transparent, right? You have to be willing to put yourself out there. And like the way that I look at it is I am who I am, right? Hiding it, if I hide it, then you're going to like somebody that isn't actually me,
What's the
right?
point?
So so what's the freaking point,
I
right?
want you to like and admire the mask.
Yeah,
No,
no, I want you to like me, and now with my history, whatever I tell people, I'll meet people. We were at a bar. Hi, how you doing? I spent 25 years in prison. Now, and what ends up happening is what's funny to me is people really like they're intrigued. But the point is, even if they say, "Oh, really? I want nothing to do with you." Okay, fine. Better find that out now than later. You know what I mean? Because it's the truth. It's reality. There's no running from it. There's no hiding from it. It just is, and that's it. And if you don't like it, okay, that's your right. I mean, see you later. But
That's
if
it.
you're gonna like me, you're gonna like me. You're not gonna like some fiction that I'm creating for everyone else's benefit. I've had enough of that in my life, and it was a disaster. And
It
it's a
is not.
disaster for anyone that does it, really,
It's
just in
not good
different
for
ways.
us. It's manipulate. First of all, it's manipulation of others.
Yep.
Secondly, it's manipulation of ourselves.
Yeah.
We're playing kind of game with our. Like, you remember we were talking about virtue in one of our podcasts. Every lie begins with a lie we tell ourselves.
Yeah.
In this kind of case, it really is very, very obvious, right? If you're putting on a false face that your friends are admiring, you're missing the entire value of friendship.
Yeah.
The entire value of this visibility thing I'm talking about is completely lost to you without that. The things that I kept, and so, my very test with people is one of my top tests is pretense. I cannot
Oh,
stand pretense,
no.
pretension, fakery, putting on an act, trying to pretend to be somebody. That I can smell that a mile away when I'm lucky, and I run for the hills because that is the absolute opposite of any kind of value I can get from a friend. I want the sincere, authentic, the way they use these words these days. I'm not sure I'm always there, but authenticity is one of these
It's
terms modern.
huge.
I love it. Authenticity. And that means straight up being who you are, not trying to impress, just being who you are. That is one of the highest virtues, and one of the things I respond to most in a human being.
Yeah. There's also when we do that, if we put on a mask, there's an implicit message sent to ourselves that I'm not worthy of showing people who I really am. And when you're teaching yourself and reinforcing that over and over again, it's Nathaniel Branden calls it reciprocal causation. When your self-esteem's poor, you do bad things to make your self-esteem poor, and it just goes off until you make that conscious choice to stop it, to get off that carousel.
As virtue and awareness of your virtue has a virtuous cycle. I felt good about what I
Yes,
did.
yeah, and that's going to make you,
I
yes,
came out with it and I made a connection.
good
And
point.
glad I made that connection. And then suddenly it's like, hey, if I'm myself, it was like what I was telling you about Holly. Hey, if I'm myself, the more I'm myself, the more I get out of this, the more immediately. Duh. Really, that's the same lesson. The more I am my authentic self, the more immediately I'm going to reap the benefits, and the more benefits I'm going to reap, and the more I bravely sometimes expose myself. And sometimes it takes courage. And I think a lot of people are afraid to expose who they really are. But that's where the real value of friendship lies, my friends. That really is.
And I learned in this book, I think the name of it was When Panic Attacks, because I got anxiety, OCD, all of it. But it talks about something you can do to overcome anxiety, especially in social situations, is make a fool out of yourself, right? Basically, just be willing to just be out there. Like, who cares? And
Right?
it's fun. And I went to a bar the other week, and a few days ago, I don't drink. My two friends were drinking, but it was funny because anybody looking on would have thought I was drunk and thought they were the sober ones. I'm out there dancing, because they ultimately, why not have fun? What's going to happen? A bunch of strangers are going to say, "Look, hey, look at this idiot." Okay, so you say, "Look at this idiot." What the hell do I care? What difference does it make? Right?
Completely,
I'm having fun.
completely sober. I could do. I so related with what you just said there. Completely sober. I can be so silly, outrageous, unusual that people will think, "Well, what has he been smoking? What drugs is he on, or whatever?" But it's just me being my enthusiastic, exuberant self. And if that turns you off, walk away. If I'll tell you a story. I'm at Ocon in Cleveland, and it's one of those evening things, and they're playing Queen, "Don't Stop Me Now." I'm loving it. There's Amy Nasser and I. We just start dancing in front of the whole crowd. We're just spontaneous. And if there were some people who were like, "What are those weird people up there dancing like they're totally happy for no apparent reason doing?" Well, okay,
Yeah,
don't watch us.
it
That's
doesn't.
not,
It makes no difference.
makes
No,
no
no
difference.
difference.
And I are sharing a moment of visibility. And if I've made a fool of myself, guess what? I really couldn't care less if you think my dancing around spontaneously is, because just because I'm happy and I haven't had a drink or a smoke of anything, and I'm just being happy. Okay, no, that's it.
I
Make a
just thought, Jim, of an excellent podcast episode. Next time we do the podcast, it's going to be dancing with Liebowitz and Valiant. We'll just dance. Dancing around.
Using another Seinfeld, Elaine with the,
Elaine, yeah.
you know, I'm afraid I'm not. My dancing might be just as horrific as Elaine's dancing. I am not Gene Kelly or Fred Astaire or anything of Mikhail Persnikov or anything like that. But I'm having fun, and see, there's something to that. Make a fool of yourself. That's why I use that example. No, I'm not a trained dancer, but guess what? Being myself and showing my exuberance and love of life was more important to me then than any opinion that anyone might have. Even there, even at a bunch of objectivist colleagues of mine, my authenticity is more important. And if it turns you off in some way, great. Now we know that about each other. Let's move along. I'd rather, yeah, if you are ever at all concerned about making a fool of yourself, there's something.
I'm in the medication line in prison in the morning. There's probably 100 inmates there. You're talking about some hardened criminals.
Yeah,
I come to the thing and I did it more than once, but there's a guy I know, he was in for murder, and I said, "Hey, I want you to raise the roof for him." Yelling, "Raise the roof for me." And he, "Get the fuck away from it." I said, "You're not raising the roof right now. I'm gonna need you. I'm
I'm
gonna
afraid
need you to raise the roof."
I'm not raising the roof. I was expecting the roof. Come
Yeah,
on.
but the thing is, he's like, "No, I'm not gonna." And it's like, what? Why? Like, what difference that you're 6'3", 280 pounds of muscle, and you're afraid to be silly because of what these people in prison are going to think about you? It was just so
Well,
backwards to me.
might be physically intimidated. See, I don't know what the prison experience is like. If someone saw me being silly, see, I would have that might inhibit me. Whereas if I'm just at a cocktail party and I'm not afraid of the guy in the next cell block with a shiv. See what I'm
You
saying?
saw too many movies.
You see what I'm saying? That being afraid of a shiv is one thing. Being afraid that someone might laugh at me at a party, that's quite another. I'm going to be myself.
Jim, they don't shiv you for raising the roof.
Okay, that's
They don't do that.
whew.
Believe me, if they did, my prison experience would have been a lot tougher.
I wouldn't want them to think that I was, I don't know what messages I'd be sending, but I'm waiting to be someone's girlfriend or what? I mean,
Jim Valliant, prison girlfriend.
well, I'm afraid I would be terrified of going to prison. Okay, Michael, that's all I. You're right.
I used to. You ever watch that show, Modern Family?
Yes.
Oh, it's hilarious. And there were three of them were breaking the law. It was Phil, the father, and Cameron. We're doing something. And Mitchell tells him, because Mitchell's gay and his boyfriend Cameron is gay. So Mitchell says, "You guys are all going to end up in prison, and it's going to be a very unpleasant experience for two of you."
Two of you are going to definitely miss a value.
Oh, that's a great show. All right, Jim, you got anything else you want to add about friendship? I think we've done a great job, but we could have, I mean, there's so much you could say, but if you have anything you want to add it. It's great.
Yeah. To my objectivist friends out there, having a productive purpose is, of course, the most important thing. We need guiding purpose. We need productive work. We need to carry our weight. All that is true. Reason is the top virtue, no question, and the top value, no question about that. But you know something? And we talk about high art, and we talk about romantic love, but you know something? There are very simple things like having a buddy that you can talk to, and that if something's bugging you, I know that Michael Liebowitz is there and will hear me out. And having that is just, ladies and gentlemen, friendship is one of the highest values in life. It makes life really, really wonderful. I cannot imagine my life without the close knit circle of friends that I have. They've made my life so much more wonderful than it would have been without them. And I include you, sir. So
Right back at you, brother.
don't diss friendship. It is critical. It is, Ayn Rand will say, could we survive on a desert island? Would we still need morality? Would there human existence possible? Yes, but it would be a miserable existence on a desert island. You add one decent person on that island, and it would be a psychological lifesaver for me. And If we have a highly virtuous person that we can really share anything with, treat them like the precious, irreplaceable value that they are, because a real friend is a precious, irreplaceable value in that sense.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jim. And where can they find you?
Thank you. I do regular podcasts for Iran Center UK. Please check it out. It's available YouTube and what's that music? Spotify. Yes, it's available. I am also on social media, Facebook, James Stevens Valliant. I manage several pages there: the Ayn Rand page, the Leonard Peikoff Study and Appreciation page,
Yeah,
the
you
Roman.
pop up even when I don't expect you to. I sign up for a group. Jim Valiant is here.
Try and suck you into that group. But I'm also on Twitter, but Facebook particularly. You can come there and ask me questions. I'm there on almost every day answering questions either about history or philosophy, and I love nothing more than to answer questions. So come hit me up.
Yeah. And if you go to Twitter, you'll sometimes see me drag him into the arguments I'm having. I'm big on that. He's not a big Twitter arguer. I am. And sometimes I bring him in. I go home and get my big brother.
I'm going to get Jim to beat you up.
Yes.
Happy to, my brother.
Thank you so much, Jim. For now, this is the Rational Egoist signing out. I'm Michael Liebowitz. Till next time.